Test, test. All right, hey guys, how's it going? So if you are new here, just welcome to RiverLakes. I am Nate. If it's your first time joining us tonight, I want to quickly just welcome you, let you know that here at RiverLakes, we're just here. If you have any sort of emotions, any feelings of anxiety, or any feelings that of uncomfortability or anything, I just hope and pray that those would be lessened, that those would be restricted, that you would realize that we're just here, just trying to love God because of everything that He has done for us. That's the reason that we come here. That's why I come here. And yeah, I'm not normally the person that speaks here. It's normally that guy right there, Nick Crown in the back.
Doesn't matter who it normally is.
Yeah, well, that's our high school pastor here, and love that guy. I am thankful for the opportunity to be able to speak. I'm super excited. And I'm going to be talking about success. We've been going through a series called The Counterfeit Christianity, where we've been talking about basically the fake versions of things that a lot of people, including myself a lot of the time, but a lot of us look at as truths that Jesus would just disagree with. And so we're just going to jump right into it. If you have your Bibles, we're going to be first in Matthew 16. But before we do that, if you wouldn't mind praying with me, that would be awesome. Dear Lord, I'm thankful for this opportunity, God. We just come before you humbly, and I just ask that you would speak through me tonight, that you would give me the words to say, because I don't have much to say myself, God, and I just pray that your message would be conveyed tonight, Lord. We love you and we thank you. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, so Matthew 16. I'm bad at flipping Bibles with one hand, but I do have little bookmarks. That's going to be about 2/3 of the way in your Bible. Matthew 16, hopefully we're all there now. So, a little bit of context. Before we get into this, I just wanted to talk about what success is, or what a lot of us see success is. Whenever you think of the word, if I think of a successful person, the first thing that comes to mind is usually somebody who is just successful. They either started in a bad spot or they were born into a good spot, and then they go off to a really nice school and get a good education, move on and get a good degree in college, get a good job. They're successful, maybe start their own business, get a nice car, get a good husband or a good wife, and a good house, and then have kids if they want them, maybe adopt. But I think that is something that a lot of people see success as. And so we're going to take a look at if Jesus sees it the same way in Matthew 16. Hopefully we're all there now. Starting in verse 21, what is happening here is Jesus is talking to his little group of people called the disciples, basically the followers of Jesus. And some stuff just happened, and some big stuff is going to happen, and that's what Jesus is talking about here. So you can just, if you want, close your eyes, imagine Jesus kind of standing around his disciples and talking to them. And he says, it says, from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and on the third day raised to life. So here Jesus is standing around his friends, and he's telling them, hey, guys, I'm gonna go suffer by the people that a lot of people see as leaders in the church, and they're gonna whip me, beat me, torment me. I'm gonna have to walk a long way with a big wooden cross, and then I'm going to be nailed to it and die, and then raised back to life. And I kind of imagine if I was one of these guys, something that I would be thinking at this time is, what the heck? Peter speaks up. Peter is just one of the disciples, and what he says is something I think I could relate to. And I think the reason that he says it is because he has basically given up his whole life to follow Jesus. He gave up everything that he had. He gave up his job, and he's following Jesus now. And then Jesus just says, hey, I have to go die now. And Peter does something that's pretty bold. He takes him aside. I imagine he kind of grabs him by the arm, takes him aside, and he began to rebuke him. He says, "Never, Lord, this shall never happen to you." So Jesus is here saying, look, there's something that needs to happen. I need to go do this thing. And Peter says, no, you can't do that. That's not something that you can do. We can't let that happen to you. That's kind of bold to stand in the way of Jesus and say, you can't do that. But I understand where he's coming from. Then Jesus turns to Peter. He turns toward Peter and he says, "Get behind me, Satan." I love that. That's crazy. He says, "Get behind me, Satan." He's speaking to Peter. He says, "Get behind me. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." He's saying, Peter, I don't want you to tell me no to this because you don't even care about what God wants. What I'm doing right now is what God wants. I'm explaining that I need to go do something. And Peter, you're just looking at what you want. You're looking at what a human would want. But we need to look at what God wants. That's what Jesus is saying when he says that. And he's basically saying to Satan, stop trying to influence Peter. Stop trying to make Peter do this because you know what God wants and you know that I need to do this. This is where it gets crazy. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple, whoever wants to be a follower of me, whoever wants to be a follower of me, they must deny themselves." So the very thing that just made Peter want to say that to Jesus, they must deny that. They must tell it no. And they must take up their cross, the same thing that Jesus is going to do in a second. They must take up their cross, their own cross, if they ever want to follow me. Take up their cross and follow me. For whoever, this is very complicated. I'll give you some time to it's very strange, but just try to pay attention to this. But whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. So basically, whoever is looking to save their life, whoever is caring about the things in their life, whoever is caring about the things like success, the way that we see it, whoever is trying to save their own life, they will lose their life. It's going to mean nothing. Their life will be meaningless. But if they are willing to give it up for me, if they're willing to sacrifice for me, if they're willing to put me above the things in their life, then that is where they will find their true life. That's where they're going to find what really matters. And this is like the key right here. In verse 26, what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? What good will it be for somebody to go out and get that really nice job and get that job that pays triple figures and just like getting everything that they want, basically, the desires of their heart? What good is it going to matter if they go get that really good boyfriend or girlfriend and make them their husband or wife and get kids and get all of this? Why does any of that stuff matter if they don't have God? And then Jesus says, or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? And this is kind of the whole point that Jesus is making here. I know it's a little complicated, but he's saying that their soul, the part inside of them, is what is actually important. What is not important is the things that so many of us value, like the American dream. Jesus is saying that's not what is important. What is important is your soul and what happens to you after you die. Why does it matter if somebody has a whole bunch of stuff and is successful if they do not have God? That's what Jesus is getting at here. We're gonna take a look at another book. This is one of my favorite books in the Bible, Ecclesiastes 2. You can flip there if you'd like. And we're going to look at an actual example of this happening to someone, to a guy named Solomon. He is one of my favorite people in the Bible, and he was a king. He had a whole lot of stuff, which we're going to read about, and he actually had 700 wives, which is a lot of wives, and he had so much stuff. He built houses, he had houses. He had basically whatever he wants. We're going to read that. We're going to look into that. Starting in verse 4 of Ecclesiastes 2. This book is right after Proverbs, right before Song of Solomon. And he says, this is Solomon talking, this really successful guy. He's basically explaining everything that he had. He says, I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself, and I planted vineyards. We see him actually doing the things, not just saying, hey, I want that, but actually saying, I'm going to do this. And he went out and built the houses himself. He actually worked for it as well. He made gardens and parks and planted all kind of fruit trees in them. Going down more, he talks about how he had people that would sing for him. He had workers. He had more herds and flocks, like animals, than anyone in Jerusalem before him. Verse 8, I amassed silver and gold for myself, the treasure of kings. He had a lot of money. He had riches. This dude was rich, very successful, had a lot of women in his life, and he had basically anything that he wanted. Verse 9, I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. And in all of this, my wisdom stayed with me. So not only does he have a whole bunch of stuff, but he also has a lot of wisdom because of all the experiences that he had. He learned more from those things, and he had a lot of power. Verse 10, I denied myself nothing that my eyes desired. Basically anything that he wanted, he went out and got it. If he was like, hey, that house looks really cool. I want that house. I'm going to buy that house. That person looks cool. I want them to come work for me. And he made those things happen. And carrying on from verse 10, this was the reward for all of my toil, all of the work that I did. He saw that this was the reward that he deserved because of all of the work that he did. Everything that he has, he did a lot to get it, and he felt like he deserved it. Verse 11, and this is where it gets insane. This is what is very important here. Solomon says, yet when I surveyed, when I looked at, when I thought about everything that my hands had done and everything that he had worked for to achieve, all of his houses, all of his wives, all of his work, all of his success. When he looked at all of it, everything was meaningless. Everything was meaningless. It was a chasing after the wind. None of it was important to him in the long run. That seems insane, and I think that this is something that ends up, I've been told this by people as they grow up and get older. This is something that a few people I know have come to this realization, and it is, I think, one of the saddest realizations that a person can come to, the same one that Solomon just came to, where they say, everything that I have done, everything that I have worked for and worked so hard to achieve, all of the success that I have, none of it really matters. By the time they turn like 70 or 80 or 60, however old, and they're looking back at everything and they're saying, dude, none of this really matters because I'm going to pass away, and I don't think by the time that I'm in heaven I'm going to care about what grade I got when I was a sophomore in high school or a junior in high school. Whenever I am in heaven, I don't think that I'm going to care about the house that I got and the fact that my job paid $10,000 more than my old job that did not. And this is just one of the saddest realizations, and Solomon came to it. And I'm thankful that Solomon did, because it kind of gave me a new way of thinking. And because Solomon went through this, I now don't have to. And why would Solomon say this? Well, he kind of explains himself in the first book, which we could have gone through, but I didn't want to spoil it too soon. The title of that book is Everything is Meaningless, which kind of seems a little dark, but in this book, Solomon is basically just explaining that it doesn't really matter in the long run, because if it's not pointing at God, if it's not focusing on God, if it's not focusing on Jesus, if it's focusing on myself, if it's focusing on things that I can do, if it's focusing on my wealth, on my power, on my popularity, on whether or not people are proud of me, whether or not people like me, whether or not I have a lot of following, if it's based on anything besides Jesus, it is, by definition of Solomon, meaningless. And Solomon had all of it. So I think we can trust what he has to say. And that is kind of just a new way of thinking. And the first time that I was reading this book and I kind of came to that realization, it changed a lot for me. And I started trying to focus on new things and focusing on God more. We're going to look at our final story. I'm trying to go quick because we're doing 3 things, and that's a lot. We're going to be in Luke 15. And I am so mad at you, Sammy. I'm very angry with you because you spoke on the story I was planning to speak on a couple weeks ago. But it's fine. You already told it, so now I don't have to. I'll just kind of summarize. Prodigal son. This is also, I know I've said this twice, this is also one of my favorite stories in the Bible. This one along with Ecclesiastes. And the prodigal son, or the lost son, is a pretty popular story. Luke 15, once again, hopefully we're there now. And I'm not going to read it all. It's a long one. But I will kind of explain what's going on. There is a man, and he has 2 kids, and just kind of a little, what's that called? Whenever people say something that they shouldn't have said because then other people know. Like a movie.
Spoiler?
Spoiler, little spoiler. Not Solomon. This book is about our relationship with God. It's about our lives and our relationship with God. In this story, the father is God. That's the symbol for God. And the 2 sons are kind of a symbol for us, depending on different stages that we're at in life. And this story starts off with a man. He has these 2 sons, and the younger one says, "Hey, Dad, you know how you're supposed to die, and I'm supposed to get your stuff once you die, all of your money and all your stuff? Well, I want that now. Could you just give that to me?" Not a very loving thing to say to your dad, but the father graciously handed it over to the son, and the son left. He left the family. He abandoned the father. He abandoned the family. He went out to a whole other country. He started spending everything. He took everything that he had, which was the father's, really, and he started spending all of it. And then he had nothing left. And there was a famine in that country. Things started to go really bad, and he began to be in need, according to this book. So he then, since he was in need, since he needed things, he had no money, he had nothing left, he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country. So he just went from being like at the right hand of his father, basically. He went from being his father's son, and his father seems to be pretty successful. We see later that they had a lot of stuff in their house. He went from being his father's son, having all this stuff, to literally nothing. And it says that he was hired out to a pig pen to feed pigs. That was a total transformation from his life, where he went from having so much to having so little. And it says that he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs ate, but no one would give him anything. He was so hungry, he was starving, he was so hungry that he just wanted what the pigs were eating, and he couldn't even get that. He didn't have any more friends, he didn't have his family, he didn't have his father that loved him so much. And this is probably an all-time low for this son. And things start to change here. In verse 17, when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough food to spare? Yet here I am starving. Here I am in need. Here I am having nothing, just longing to be fed with what the pigs are eating. My father is so loving, he's so kind that he gives his workers more than I have right now. I don't even have food." And then he decided to go to him. He said, I will go out and go back to my father and say to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. Just let me work for you. He's coming to this realization where he's like, I have nothing left, and all that I want at this point, I don't even want my father to forgive me. I don't even expect that because I messed up bad. I just want him to even hire me because he is so kind that even if he would do that, I would be happy because then I would at least have something to eat. So he got up and he went. He went to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, filled with compassion, and he ran to him, he embraced him, he hugged him, he kissed him. He said, hey, guys, servants, family, bring the best robes that we have, put them on him. Bring the ring that symbolizes the family crest. My son was lost, he's found now, he's back in the family, and I'm very happy about it. That is not the picture that I would expect from the Father, but it's the picture that this Father has. And keep in mind, this is a story of us with God. And the Father just unconditionally loves the Son, even though he left. Even though we oftentimes leave, we stumble, we fall away from God. And this might not seem like it ties in with the story super well, but I'm about to connect it. I would argue that the first time that this son sees success is when he said, Father, I have nothing and I need you. It's when he said, Father, look, Dad, I messed up and I am in need of you because I have nothing left here. I would say that's when he became successful. Because based on what Solomon and what Jesus said in the past, in the last two passages that we read, our success is not based on whether or not we do good and cool things here. It is based entirely on what Jesus did and our relationship with him. So, for the son to say, Dad, I messed up and I need you, that is the first time that we see him being successful since he wasn't in a relationship with the Father. And that is exactly how it is for us. Our success is only based on whether or not we go back to our Father. It's only based on whether we go back to God. It is only based on that. It is based entirely on who Jesus is, not on who we are, not on what we do, but it's based on entirely who Jesus is. It's not based on how popular I am. It's not based on how much I accomplish here in life and how much money I make. And it's not based on my friends. It's not based on whether or not people accept me or love me. Not based on whether or not I feel like I'm loved. It is based completely on Jesus and whether or not we are following him. And that sounds like it kind of sucks because it seems like it's completely out of our hands. But I will tell you, it is really not. It's actually some of the best news I've ever heard in my life because it means that it's not on my shoulders. It takes a lot of weight off of my shoulders of feeling like I have to do things to become successful, feeling like I need to do things to be good enough to earn love from people, feeling like I need to be good enough of a person or do enough things. None of that is true whenever we look at Jesus. I don't have to earn anything to be successful. I only have to follow him. And that sort of goes along with having to earn God's love. If we're feeling like we need to do enough to earn love from God or to earn love from others, a lot of bad things can happen. But the whole point of Jesus' success is that God loves us. To quote Sammy, God loves us because he loves us. God doesn't love us because I'm a successful person that went out and did good things and got a lot of things like Solomon. He loves me simply because he wants to. He loves me because he loves me. Stealing what you said, Sammy. So I think that's great news, and I think there's a lot to talk about here and a lot to continue going off of. But I don't know how long I spoke for, but trying to cut it short. I'm just going to sort of leave with a couple questions that I want you to think about, and we're going to break off into groups after this. I'll explain that. But firstly, I just want you to think about what are your main goals in life? at this present moment right now as you're sitting here, think about what are the things that you really care about? What are the things that you're trying to accomplish? What are your goals? Where do you want to be once you're 30, once you're 20, once you're 40? What are the main goals in life that you are trying to do? What are your main desires? And then the second one, at what point in your life, at what age, or maybe not an age, but at what point, once you do enough, at what point in your life will you see yourself as successful? And if you reach that point where you see yourself as successful, do you think that Jesus will see you as successful there as well? Do you think it would line up with what Jesus would see as successful? So those are my questions. We're going to split up into groups after I pray now. So if you guys wouldn't mind praying with me, that'd be great. Father, we are just so thankful and amazed by you and by who you are, Lord. I'm so thankful that my success, no matter how successful or how much of a failure that I feel like I am, I'm thankful that even if I feel like it is really not based on me. I'm thankful that you came down to earth and did what you did so that I don't have to become a successful person in the way that so many of us see it, Lord, in the way that I often see it. I'm thankful that you have done everything that you've done for us so that we don't have to do it, God. And I'm thankful for every person here today, Lord. I'm thankful for my brothers and sisters that are outside with me, that we get to continue meeting at a time like this. And I just pray for any souls that are disrupted right now, anyone who is hurting. I pray that you would comfort them, that you would let them know that they are loved, let them know that they are loved here by these people, by us at RiverLakes, and by yourself. Let them know that they're cared for, God. And we just thank you so much, Lord. Please let the discussion groups go well. And just thank you for everything that you've done. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen.